Good morning. So fortunately, Father Stephen gave me plenty of time to prepare for this homily, and as my notes and my thoughts started to come together, I kind of got excited because I have a message that I wanted to share with you. I love you. Father, I love you. I love you. Was that uncomfortable at all? Sometimes it could be, right? Sometimes it could be a little uncomfortable. I imagine if I walked across the street to Boulder Run and did that, I might have a little trouble on my hands. But I say that because our whole faith is founded on love. We just heard that. And yet, in our culture today, it's very easy to become confused about what love is and what love isn't. It can be manipulated, misunderstood. And that's common, that's natural. I remember when I was going through RCIA, one of our team leaders tried to explain to me that Jesus Christ had to be the center of my life. And I said, "You're going to need to explain that to me. I don't understand what that means." And she said, "You need to love Jesus more than anyone or anything else in your life." And that was hard to understand. How do I rank who I love? How does that work? I love more than so-and-so? I had trouble with that. She said, "Let me paint a picture for you." She said, "Imagine a triangle. And at the two lower angles of the triangle are you and your wife. And at the top corner of the triangle is Jesus. As you and your wife grow closer to Jesus, you both grow closer to each other." And for me, that just clicked. I could understand what she was meaning. So, when we have questions like this, where do we normally go? Where's the first thing we turn to when we have a question, we want to understand something? Anyone? Google. Yeah, Father got it. So I don't have my phone with me, but I went ahead and I printed out the definition of love from Google. An intense feeling of deep affection. I don't know about that. A feeling, an emotion. Don't those change? Don't feelings and emotions change? They're hard to control. Our hearts can betray us sometimes. I don't know that that's what we're looking for. Maybe we'll jump down to the second one. A great interest or pleasure in something. And it gives an example of his love for football. I'm going to bet that today, Moses in Deuteronomy and Jesus in today's gospel, we're not talking about that kind of love. I can almost guarantee it. So our Christian understanding of love is so much greater than all of that. So much greater of all of that. So instead of turning to Google, we need to turn to our faith. What is love? You know, a few years ago, I remember one of Father Stephen's homilies, and he was talking about these ancient Greek words to describe love. The first is eros. That means a romantic love. An example of that would be the love between a husband and a wife. The second type of love is storge, and that's a familial type of love. An example of that would be the love between a mother and her children. The third type of love would be philia. That's a love between friends, an intimate friendship. But the last and the greatest of all of them is agape love. That love is selfless, unconditional, sacrificial. And this is an example of that. St. Thomas Aquinas defines love as to will the good of another. Basically, that means that we have to decide intentionally to will the good of another person. It's a conscious decision on our part to will the good of another. Because how else could we love our neighbor? How else could we love a defiant teenager? How else could we love a meddling mother-in-law? Mom, if you're watching, I'm not talking about you. Just making an example. How else could we love a friend that betrays us? How else could we love an estranged spouse? How else could we love a stranger that stole from us? How else could we love a political adversary? How else could we love our neighbor? And so I'd like to close with, I would invite you to share in a short meditation on love, a scripture passage that most of us have probably heard at one time or another, and I'm sure many of you might even know better than I do. But after we've tossed this term around, I'd invite you to think about it a little differently as we go through this. In St. Paul's letter to the Corinthians, he writes, love is patient. Love is kind. It is not jealous. It is not pompous. It is not inflated. It is not rude. It does not seek its own interests. It is not quick-tempered. It does not brood over injury. It does not rejoice in wrongdoing, but rejoices with the truth. It bears all things, believes all things, hopes all things, endures all things. Love never fails.